Hi and welcome along. I'm Greg Watson from Watson Real Estate in Palmerston North, New Zealand. I've dealt with thousands of tenancies over the years and hundreds of landlords. I currently look after about 650 properties in this area. Today we're going to be talking about, are you too soft, or trying to answer the question, are you just too soft as a landlord? And in my role, being a professional property manager, one of our jobs is to be very process-based and to have a degree of, or to create a degree of separation between landlords and tenants. Tenants like this because they don't have to deal directly with the owner. The owners like it because they don't have to deal directly with the tenants. So we're in that middle ground. But in New Zealand, about 60% of all rental properties are privately managed, which means that they're not managed by a company. So I just wanted to tell you some of the things that I see in my day-to-day work that would indicate that some people are just a bit too soft as a landlord. Now, when a property management company manages a property, it doesn't matter that everything is systems and process-based. What I mean is, it doesn't matter in how to treat people, because we can still treat people nicely and treat them the right way. We're not cold-hearted people. But it's important that every step of a process continues along the way. So here's some of the common things that would indicate to me that somebody might be a bit too soft as a landlord. The most troubling, which has been the topic of some of my other chats, is that people don't increase the rents very often at all because they like the tenants. I just looked at 3 properties this morning, one where the tenant's been in place 10 years and 2 where they've been in place for 5 years. Now that's fantastic at first glance, but of course the owners are often reluctant to increase rents. A small rent increase, even a $10 rent increase, will add $500 worth of income per annum, a $10 increase per week. So often a sign that somebody's a bit soft is that they don't put the rent up as regularly as they should. While this might not sound like the end of the world, this adds up to many thousands of dollars. In a recent example where I helped a lady out, I recognised and calculated that she'd missed out on $27,500 worth of rent because she kept some people in place for 10 years at a rent that was too low. Other signs that you might be too soft as a landlord, and I'm going to put my hand up and confess here because I'm actually a soft landlord. I don't manage my own properties. I have one of my staff do it. Just for the same reason, it creates that degree of separation and an independent voice when it comes to dealing with tenants. You see, when you're a bit of a soft landlord, you might cave in to the needs of tenants where you don't actually technically need to. An example would be if tenants didn't like the green curtains in the lounge and they wanted me to buy blue ones, I'd probably go ahead and buy some. But in reality, a property manager would step in and say, no, don't buy some. If the tenants want, they can change them as long as they put yours back when they leave, and saving you money. So not having that emotional attachment or feeling like you have to deal directly is quite valuable. Not only that, but soft landlords often find that if they hear sad stories or the tenants get themselves into difficult situations, they feel quite attached to those tenants. And this can often happen around rent. One of the properties I looked at this morning with a private owner, the tenant owes around $1,000 in rent because of a few things that happened in her life, a marital split and so forth. And again, the owner in this case had done the right things and had followed the processes to keep that rent down, and she's now got something in place so that tenant is repaying. But you see, if you're a soft landlord, if you're just too soft to be a landlord, imagine the rent's always been paid, the tenant's good, and they come to you one week and say, look, I'm sorry, I've had a relative die. I've got to go up north to visit them. Can I pay 2 weeks' worth of rent next week instead of paying my weekly rent this week? And most people would say, absolutely fine. We are following a process. You can still say that's absolutely fine, but you say, please understand though, we have to give you a legal notice, a written notice that you'll have to catch that up. Once the rent misses, don't take it personally. It's just part of the process. Now, people, we don't have to come down hard on people and say we believe you or we don't believe you. because a certain number of times in my experience that tenants promise to pay don't get paid. Whereas if you're following a process that's got the legal background there so that you can do things when you need to. So the letting arrears get away can be a sign of a soft landlord, as can under-renting the property in the first place. If you end up with a combination of both, I feel terribly sorry for you. And as well as that, just literally being able to not deal directly with tenants and landlords means that things just run a lot more smoothly. A couple more signs that you might be a bit soft as an owner. I went to two of the properties I went to this morning had run down and wrecked cars on them. The first one had 3 vehicles and the second one had about 4 on the grounds. Now, that's not the be-all and end-all, but they also had scruffy gardens, and these are properties that we aren't managing, but I went to appraise for value. So this is where, if you're a bit soft, it's difficult to have some of those conversations with tenants around mowing the lawns, removing rubbish, tidying up, that sort of thing. If you have a property manager as a third party, there's no emotion involved. It's either tidy or it's not. And if it's not, it has to be tidied up and legally remedied. And the tenants understand that property managers have to work for the owners. We're also there for the tenants, but we find it much easier to take those steps. We're simply doing what's required and ensuring that tenants are doing what they are required to do. So around tidiness, certainly is an area that can be hard to police yourself, particularly if you're scared that the tenants might move or that you might upset them and ruin a relationship. When you have a property management company helping out, it's explained to the tenants that everything we do is process-based. It's not that we don't have a relationship with them, it's just the same process applies whether somebody is a rich person, a poor person, or whatever demographic background they come from. The process is exactly the same, step by step, every time. I guess another area was 2 of the houses I went through this morning, the tenants were not supposed to have pets and they both had dogs. So again, it's just an owner who, for one reason or another, decided to let the dogs stay when really they didn't need to. They're not that happy that they're there, but again, when you're dealing first-hand, face-to-face with tenants, it can be tough to have those conversations. So that's one of the things that we keep a very close eye on in property management, is whether the tenants are abiding by the rules that they should be. Another example of if you're a bit soft as a landlord, apart from letting pets in when you told them they weren't allowed them, is generally that when you have a look around the house, when you inspect the property, that it is pretty untidy. And not just the gardens, but untidy inside as well. And it is possible to put your foot down. In this country, residential tenancy law allows you to insist the home's reasonably clean and tidy, and that you can take steps to remedy things if it's not. Unfortunately, the word reasonable is subject to interpretation, but really, these sort of things that show you're a little bit soft as a landlord, a combination of them can let things get away, so that before too long you've got a home where maybe the rent's a bit low, the tenants are in arrears, the gardens are scruffy, there's a dog at the property, the inside's untidy and so forth, and it can be a bit of a slippery slope. So my advice to you, if you are managing your own property or renting out your own property, is that you follow all of the steps as a process at every stage that you should by law. There's insurance implications, which mean that if you don't do certain steps at certain times, it can void your insurance depending on the circumstances. So without scaring you to death, that's a little bit about that. I know that I would be too soft as a landlord, and so that's why I tend to have a property manager help me out. Welcome along, Michael. I was just paraphrasing